Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today is probably best known as one of the founding members of the incredible Trans Siberian Orchestra and a key part in its predecessor, Savatage. He's also released some great solo music, and he's about to put out a second record with his band Spirits of Fire. The record is called Embrace the Unknown. It's out everywhere February 18th. Please welcome Chris Caffery. Welcome, Chris.
It's great to be here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. And for those who aren't familiar, Spirits of Fire is yourself, Steve DiGiorgio from Testament and Death on bass, Mark Zonder, who spent a lot of time in Fate's Warning on drums. And for this record, you have a new singer, Fabio Leone from Angra and Rhapsody. Now, first off, how did you guys initially come together? And on the first record, Ripper Owens was on vocals. How did you end up with Fabio on this record?
Well, actually, the first record came together by Frontiers approaching me to do a record, and they had the formula they wanted to use because there was a lot of those different bands have members. So they said, well, how would you like to do a record with Ripper singing, and we'd like to use Steve DiGiorgio and Mark Zana. So that would be great. I mean, Ripper's a very good friend of mine. So it was a big part of the selling point to get me to want to do Spirits of Fire in general was to have Ripper, because I'm not that I don't like playing with other bands, but I really wasn't looking for anything to do at that time. And then, they wanted to have Roy Z produce it, who I've always been a huge fan of. So I was like, yeah, that would be great. And then that's how that whole thing came about. And when we came to do the next record, they came back to me and said, would you like to do Spirits of Fire too? And I was like, yeah, it would be a lot of fun. And, I wasn't aware at that particular point in time that Ripper was not going to be involved, but for whatever reason, him and Frontiers had parted ways on this record. They said, well, we're going to be finding another singer. Do you still want to be a part of it? I wanted to make more music. I thought that the first record was very good, but I really wanted to try to get a chance to make a second one. I didn't want to leave things with just having that one record show out anyway. So we at first we were looking for different singers. I did some work with Todd Hall, was actually doing some writing and was considering being a part of it, but he had some reasons personally and musically that he didn't have the time that he wanted to put in. So Frontiers said, you want to try using Fabio? And I think he did a wonderful job, man. He showed a side of metal in him that I don't even think anybody realized was there. And the coolest thing about it is when this record was done, I played it to a lot of friends and a lot of people like you who have a lot of knowledge and experience in the whole entire genre of metal and rock. And nobody guessed who it was that sang.
No, you
Not one
wouldn't.
person. Yeah, and that was the coolest part about it. So, Fabio, I always tell people my words is he put the metal to the pedal, and he became the singer of Spirits of Fire on this record, and he really did a great job. He wrote the lyrics and melodies and put them together with our producer Aldo, and I just did mostly writing the music on this record. So I let that go into their hands, and I'm really super happy with the final product. To me, it's just a really fun listen. I tell people that all I wanted to do with this was to make a really cool metal record, something that people would be able to play and like, and I think that's what we did, and for me, I like listening to it, which is kind of rare sometimes that I'll put on my own stuff and really be into it as like a driving thing or something that I want to put on. And this one has that for me. It's just a fun metal record. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that when I wrote the music, I didn't know what the lyrics and melodies were going to be, so when I got the finished versions of these songs, it was like listening to a new record. And I think that's why I put it on and listen to it like that. And I think the metal fans will really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely just that old school metal feel that you just don't get enough of. But as soon as everyone hears it, they're like, that's what I'm in the mood for. So
yeah, exactly. And that's what I think people will like with this one. I just tell people it's not the greatest record that's ever been done, but it's a fun listen, front to back. It's a cool metal record. And that's all I think any of us wanted to do with this. And I'm noticing the reaction. I mean, we had close to 160,000 views of the first video on YouTube in 10 days, and
Mm.
that's more views than any video out of the last record in 3 years. So it's definitely showing that there's a reaction happening. And I'm looking at the comments, and it's metal fans all over
Mm.
the world, Peru and South America and Greece, and these kids are really enjoying what they're hearing. And that's, to me, is the important thing, because that's why I did this. I didn't
Mm.
do it, for any other reason other than to make some good music and hopefully get some people that would like it. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm really happy about it.
And as you put the music together for, I'm assuming during the pandemic that you guys couldn't all get together. So having not worked with Aldo, and Aldo Lenobile, your producer, also worked with your bandmate Zach Stevens on his Archon Angel record, which was amazing as well. But having not having that personal connection with Aldo or Fabio yet, was it a little weird sending off your songs, not quite knowing what they were going to do with them?
Um, Maybe a little bit
Mhm.
weird. I mean, when I heard what was coming back, I liked it. So I
Mhm.
had a confidence factor on it. I mean, the distance thing is how we did the last record. So it wasn't even without the pandemic. Tracks were done all over the place with the
Mhm.
last one. But with this one, obviously we had to do it a certain way. But what I was able to do with this one was something that didn't happen with the last one. I did my final rhythm guitars to the final drums.
Mhm.
So where the first record, Mark did his drums to my guitars, and that's what wound up being in the mixes. This one, I kind of took the drums and rewrote myself to marry him,
Mhm.
which was kind of where I consider to be like the rehearsal. I got into this rehearsal room with Mark Zonder, and I played along with Mark Zonder and put myself down as to be like, what, all right, here's this drum beat, which is a little bit different than the initial riff I have. How do I make it still have that? So I gave it a live feel, and just
Mhm.
kind of rewrote myself around him, because he's such an artistic drummer.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have the music be really driving with that. So I made sure I kind of rewrote myself to lock in. And then when Steve came on top of my new kind of playing, he locked in. And to me, this record sounds more like a band
Mhm.
when you hear it. It's got a really full, cool sound to it. The bass is so incredible, and the drums were always incredible. But but now I think as a whole big circle, it really sounds that way. And not having Ripper involved, really the only thing I wanted to make sure was that people weren't disappointed.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I just want to have the best metal music I could possibly have. And when Aldo was started working on this, he was like, "Oh, here's a couple song ideas," and he would sent me the music, and I was kind of like, "Well, I don't know how to say this, but I'm not using
Yeah.
anybody's music but mine on this," because Roy had written some stuff for the first one. But my whole thing was like, "Look, we're going to get a tremendous amount of pressure about not having Ripper, because Ripper's
Yeah.
Ripper. He's one of the
Yeah.
greatest metal singers that I've worked with and has been around in my generation. And there's going to be a lot of eyes and ears
Mhm.
going on to this record. Now, the record sucks. I want it to be my fault."
Mhm.
And and that was it. It was more coming from like, if
Mhm.
people aren't gonna like this, I don't want to turn around and go, damn it, I should have done it. So
Right.
I was like,
Right.
I'm just gonna go and put my foot down and say, no,
Mhm.
I'm gonna write the music. And
Mhm.
that's where I kind of did that. It's the only real kind of, I don't say power play. It's what I just said. I'm like, look, I wanna have that
Mhm.
go down. You guys could put the lyrics and melodies on top of it, because I don't want it to sound like a Chris Caffery solo record.
Yeah.
I want it to sound like Spirits of Fire. So do what you need to do on top of it, but I'm gonna give you this base. So I'm gonna put
Mhm.
the frame in and the basic artwork, and then everybody can finish it from there. And it was cool. I mean, I had all my guitars pretty much put out myself, and the only thing really Fabio produced with my guitars was a couple solos. And it was kind of cute because he was being kind about it. He was like, these 3 songs, I these don't know how to say it exactly. I think the solos could be better. And it was just like, all right. And I went back and listened. I was like, you know what? He's right, because I did a wall of guitars. The rhythms, I had 3 different guitars. Like, they were always different for each song. Be like, V and Rhodes and Les Paul, or
Mhm.
Strat and this one and that.
Yeah.
But three I had 2 tracks of 3 different guitars as the rhythms on each song, so there's 6 rhythm guitar
Wow.
tracks. So I was
Yeah.
putting a ton of time into that, and I had my leads, and I'd put them on top, and a lot of times, I thought it worked right away, but I heard what he heard when he had those songs. As far as, I don't think the leads were as strong as the vocals, the bass, and the drums, and the
Mm.
other guitars. So I would hear that, I was like, "You know what? He's right. These do kind of suck." So it's like, let me take it and try to move it forward. And I did that. So that's where his real production came in. And then we listened back and forth with the production and the mixing, and he's got a great ear, and I would just listen to it and give my opinions on things. But Aldo did a tremendous amount of work on this record. And it's something I'm really proud of front to back. I think this is a really cool listen.
Yeah. And do you see, again, you, Steve, and Mark are based here in the States. I assume Fabio is in Italy. Do you see a time when you guys could get together and play, whether it's some festival dates or even a mini tour or something like that?
Well, my whole thing with that is this. I'm watching so and so cruise shut down, and this person's dates from February moved to October, and
Mhm.
this person's dates from June moved to 2023. And I'm going, it's a new band. We're in different parts of the world. You know, it would cost money to get us together, rehearse, and put a whole thing together. If I book a show and they can't happen, I'd rather take the time to know that we're going. And it's hard to say if that's going to happen next year, because hopefully next year isn't the same. But yeah, I think it's safer right now just to let the record come out and let people digest that. And,
Mhm.
maybe if we got an opportunity to do a festival and people's schedules were open around it, to get together and spend a few days where that is, rehearsing before we play. But whatever we do, it's going to take time to get it together, because we never played together live. So it's definitely one of those things that I want to happen, but I can't assume that anybody would want to take the risk on that right now
Right.
financially. I mean, dude,
Mm.
even if you wanted to make merchandise, I mean, if you printed up all that stuff and you didn't play, and you got a box of shirts that
Mhm.
never get sold, and you have, plane fights that never get used in hotel rooms. I mean,
Mm.
so I think it's just the assumed risk factor is so high right now that with a brand new thing, I think it's safer just to wait. I
Yeah,
do.
makes sense. And speaking of touring, you just wrapped up the TSO tour for the season not too long ago. And that band has been such a part of your life personally and musically for so long. What was it like to get back on stage in the Tux this year?
It it was amazing. I mean, I was blessed with the opportunity to have the live stream the year
Yeah.
before. I mean, my year, especially since, unfortunately we lost Paul. So a lot of what TSO did was Paul's visions and
Mhm.
ideas, and the scheduling. It's what Paul, if we did Beethoven tour, Paul put it together. If we did Wacken, it was Paul putting it together. And then when Paul passed, a lot of what was happening with TSO outside of TSO stopped because there was no Paul. So my January till the winter tour was kind of open in the clear at that moment. So when 2020 went down, it wasn't until I saw the TSO announcement that we're not playing that the reality of what was going
Mhm.
on hit me, which was probably later in the summer. And I was like, wow, we're not going to play. And then when management and the O'Neill family called up to say, hey, we're going to do this live stream, it was like your heart started beating. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So we got to go and rehearse that. And
Yeah.
it was different, but it was kind of like going to get together for a tour that only had one show.
Yeah.
So but we at least had that. I got to see my friends and my family, and I got to be, we got to be in 250,000 households at that time, which millions of people who
Mhm.
got to watch TSO, and we still had a chance to be a part of it. But obviously when 2021 came around and we saw that live shows were happening again, and they said, we're gonna go for it. And, you know, again, like I said, you want to talk about assume risk. Imagine having to put on
Yeah.
what TSO did. So we went out and we did it, and it was such a great feeling to get up back on that stage. But top to bottom, and you got to name every person from our management to our production people to everybody on the band and the crews, to get out there and to get through it, it was a real task and a challenge, and I'm so proud of everybody and proud of being a part of what happened. It was amazing to see the fans again, and I was so happy to be a part of their, their holidays and their time of the year again, because that's what we do. And the O'Neill family and everybody with Night House, we put it together. And you got to think of it like that. It's like, it's not just about you individually, because
Mhm.
if any one of us could have taken that whole tour down, the way this thing was. So
Yeah.
we all went out there, and you have the lights, the sound, the pyro, the lasers, the mirrors, the video, the catering, the hotels, the buses, the trucks, the crew, you know, all these venues, all these people were relying on us to go and play. And we all had a mission, which was to focus and do what we needed to do to get through with it. And really, really so proud of everybody involved with TSO that we took on that challenge, and we successfully made it through this tour in one of the most difficult times to be on the road ever. So I think that
Yeah.
it was a blessing for us to be able to do it, and we were blessed to have the fans show up to watch it.
Mhm.
And all of us together were blessed to have this amazing group of people that made it all happen. And we got to keep, Paul's legacy and the music alive, and be out there, like I said, in the most difficult time ever. If I was to call you up yesterday and say, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe this dream I had last night," we were on the road and shows were fine, but I got off stage, there was no backstage, and there was no signing line, and we put
Mhm.
masks on, and we went right to the bus, and our days off, we didn't leave our hotel rooms, and there was a pandemic around in the world. It was the weirdest dream ever. It's like, that's what we lived,
Yeah.
It was like we successfully made it through it. And
Yeah.
it's something that I knock on everything. I hope next year's tours get to be back to more normal for us, by the time we get to November, December. But it's something that we're a part of together. And like I said, the TSO family, from top to bottom, all came together and did something really special. And like I said, the fans, we obviously wouldn't have been able to go do this if they didn't show up. So we all came together, I think, as one big, large, giant TSO family this year.
Yeah, and it was much appreciated as somebody who was there. Yeah, and we spoke about Savatage earlier, and they're re-releasing the Savatage catalog on vinyl. They're up to Hall of the Mountain King now, which is when Paul came in and around the time you started. Does it surprise you that 20 years after the last Savatage record, that band is still has such a cult following? And got to ask the obligatory: do you ever see a Savatage show taking place again?
Well, I mean, we did the Vakken
Yeah.
show in 2015, and it's amazing to me. But when you think about it this way, when I first started playing with Savatage, look how old I was. I was
Yeah.
19. Now, at that point in time, 20 years after that, there was a 1-year-old person that was 21. So 20 years after my first Savatage show, somebody was 21, and that I'm now approaching, like, I think 35 years since I've done Savatage things. So you think of all the people and metal fans that have never seen
Yeah.
Savatage, that have never got a chance to experience that, and their parents were into the band, and their uncles or somebody, and then the videos are there, and everything shows up. And I think, we're one of the few bands that hasn't played, but
Mhm.
we're all still there. So
Yeah.
there's that, we did that Vakken show, but I think that I don't even know if it is a cult necessarily, just the fact that we, for some reason, are not leaving the new fans.
Mhm.
They're all hearing
Yeah.
it, and we're just staying as a part of what, it's like you have classic rock. When Zeppelin stopped playing, young kids still listen to Zeppelin, and
Mhm.
it's still an important part of everybody's music from age 8 to 80. And I think that that's kind of what Savage's reach with metal. I mean, we're just one of these bands that the music's growing well with time.
Mhm.
Songs like Believe, and songs like Mountain King, and songs like Morphine Child, and songs like Chance, they're aging in a way that's going from generation
Yeah.
to generation. And that's something that is really special, and that's something that I'm really proud to be a part of. And Paul and the Oliver brothers and all of us, we put together some great music. You know, we all still listen to everything that Freddie Mercury did. We all still listen to things that the Beatles did. I'm not saying we're Savatage is the Beatles or Queen, but the music is generation gap and layers are extending like that. You know, we're going to different generations. And, you know, if we get a chance to, you know, we're talking now, we've been writing, everybody goes, Chris Caffery said it's like, you know, Chris Caffery's the biggest Savatage fan in the world, you know, and Chris Caffery would love to see Savatage play tomorrow. That's all. Whatever Chris Caffery says is always over the top optimism, because that's, you know, my band in my life. So if it plays tomorrow, I'll be there. But if it doesn't, you know, I live a dream with Savatage being a part of my life. And I've been writing stuff with John for the first time in a long time, which is exciting. And I have a stack of the new vinyls. I get them as they come out. You know, management gets them as they come out. So I'll get them in my mail. I got, you know, in the same order, the little hourglass thing, and then all the way up the line. And my Mountain King's not here yet. So, you know, they'll come in for me as they come out to the people. And it's exciting to watch people still love that band, you know, and it's such really great music. John and Chris Oliva were, you know, they're musical geniuses, which is true. And so was Paul. I mean, they created some timeless things. I mean, Paul O'Neill's lyrics gathered people together around the world. I always tell this to people, like, I was a guitar player that, no offense to singers at the time, I didn't really pay attention to every lyric when I was a kid. When you had Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and Michael Schenker, and you're a guitar player, you're not, you know, your main focus isn't on what is Mr. Crowley's lyrics about, you know, you're thinking about what Randy Rhoads is playing. And when Paul started talking to me and I started listening to more of his production, and he said to me these words, he said, Chris, he's like, anybody could write a song about a car or a girl. He says, but when you could write music that changes people's lives, you know, he always thought that was something that was very important. And he wrote these songs like Believe and these other ones that just, you know, with the Christmas music, a song like Ornament, where everybody in that audience relates to that song. And it's something that happened with Savatage. And we would go play in Europe, and I'd see these kids there from Egypt or from Brazil where we hadn't played yet. And they'd be like, you saved my life. And not meaning me, but basically meaning Paul, you know, in the lyrics, the message of Savatage. And I was like, wow, you know, the Olivas and Paul O'Neill had done something with this music that was literally keeping people alive and giving them hope. And, you know, kids were saving for 6-8 months to get enough money to travel to a festival in Europe to watch us play, to get the opportunity to maybe be able to tell us that. And that was before the internet and stuff, to where they couldn't message you that. So the only way they had to do it was to be at a show and hopefully see you roaming around a crowd at a festival or something. So, you know, like I said, I think the bridge of the generations that happened with Savatage is incredible. And I think it's the same thing as happening with TSO. You know, I watched TSO for 25 years now, and, you know, there's people that are 24 that were not born when this started, you know, and they are having kids, and there were kids that were 2, or they said, I went to see you for the first time when I was 5, you know, and they're 27 now, and they're married and they're starting to have their kids, and they'll be bringing them. And, you know, it's a great thing. And I think TSO is crossing into everybody's lives musically like that as well. And it's something, like I said, it has to do with the brilliance of somebody like Paul. He had a magic about him to where he had it figured out. I don't know how he had it figured out, but he just knew it. And Paul was a special person. And like, people like that don't come around very often. And I was blessed to have him, you know, not only be my boss, but almost like my dad for over 30 years. So, you know, I was 17, he was my first boss ever. So it's pretty crazy.
And I don't even know if you've heard this yet, because on the day we're recording this, that was just announced yesterday, but Misplaced Straws, I'm proud to be a sponsor of the Ultimate Jam Night in New York on March 7th, the annual benefit for the David Z Foundation. We've all taken part in for many years. Don't know if you even heard yet, but any ideas on if you'll be able to join us?
Well, my whole thing with that comes down to completely where things are with my safety about being
Yes,
able to walk in there,
100%.
because I take care of
Yeah.
my mom.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
100%.
and I'd
Yeah.
love to do Ultimate Jam, but if I gotta do the Ultimate Jam night and I gotta hide for 10 days away
Yeah.
from my mom because I might have.
Mhm.
So if the cases, we never know, in a
Mm.
month, the case levels
Yeah.
may be down well enough where I would feel comfortable with that. But if I don't, I'm not gonna go wander in there
Yeah.
and put my mom's health at risk, because at a benefit concert for somebody who passed away, it's kind of like, I
Yeah.
love Dave and Z Brothers, and I love that they do with
Yeah.
that. But the
Yeah.
idea is to be a benefit concert. It's like, I don't want it to be. And I think the one of the last things I was supposed to do before the world shut down in 2020 was that was going on. And I'd said to Paulie, I was like, I can't go down there for
Yeah, it
this
was
right
right
now.
around that time. Yep.
New York was getting bad at that point, and there was no medication, and there was no vaccines, and there was no way, that literally could have been something that put my mom on a
Yeah.
ventilator, and that's how I've dealt with this since day one. Until I know that it's safe for me to do what I'm doing, I'm going to put her life before my career. And that's just,
Mhm.
I'll do what I need to do if I have to protect myself and then hide from her. But to go down there and play, ramble on and get off the stage and drive back home
Mhm.
and have this stuff inside me and
Yeah.
hurt her. I'm not, God bless everybody involved, but I'm not going to do that at this point in time. I
Mhm.
mean, I'd love to play every day if I could, but there's that assumed risk factor, and I'm just going to keep it there because
Mhm.
of my mom.
Of course. Of course. We've been spending some time here with the great Chris Caffery. The band is called Spirits of Fire. The record Embrace the Unknown is out everywhere February 18th. As we've said, it's just a great old school metal record. It's a fun record to listen to. And Chris, best of luck with it. Hopefully this all clears up eventually and we get
Thank
to see
you.
you back on the road or even March 7th. Thanks, Chris.
Well, I mean, we were out, like I said, we were out on the road, so the tours will happen, but we'll hopefully, knock on everything, life will get back to exactly where it was for everybody. So, and thank you for the support, and I hope everybody enjoys this album.
You got it. Thanks, man.